Hey everyone, welcome to my very first solo review. Memoir 44 is a game that I have always talked very highly about, and I will continue to do so for a very long time, so I know that's kind of a spoiler for the end where I talk about how I like and or don't like the game. But rather than show you the campaign bag, which is not in the base game, I figured I would go ahead and show you what you get in the base box. Now this is going to be a series of videos. This is just going to be talking about what you would get in the base box. I'm not going to talk about any of the expansions that are already available to you because this game is an older game. Let's take a look at what you get on the inside. When you buy a base set of a game of Memoir, it's going to come with, of course, just this box. Inside the box you'll find a rule book. It has full color pages, good diagrams of the different rules that they're going over, and it also comes with no less than 16 different scenarios that you can play. Also coming in the base game is the board. The board is double-sided. It has one side is a beach board where you can do Normandy invasions or any other kind of amphibious landings that would have been covered in some of the scenarios, and then the other side is just like a grassy plains kind of a pasture type thing, and then of course the expansion tile. I'm sorry, not the expansion tiles, but the terrain tiles are going to change the landscape dramatically. Then also in the base game comes with the cards. First of all, they have what are called terrain cards. And the terrain cards are going to be cards that you can put next to your board that act as quick references on what the different kinds of terrain and how that affects movement and combat and all this other kind of stuff. Then also they have these things that are unit cards. First of all, the unit card explains exactly what each unit can do. Infantry, armor, and then artillery. It tells you how far it can move, and then how far it can shoot, and then how many dice you roll for each hex away from where it goes. So that's a good reminder to keep on the board, very much so. On the other side of that card, there is a special units card, which just tells you different special rules for like special kinds of infantry, elite units, that type of thing. And then you also have an obstacles card, which comes with the game. Again, this is just a reminder, so you don't have to keep that rule book open. The different kinds of obstacles that are in the game, barbed wire, sandbags. Then on the other side, there are fixed obstacles, pillboxes for those Normandy beach landings, and then hedgehogs also. So these are just, again, good cards to keep on the side of the board as you're playing so that you don't have to refer back to the rulebook very often. And then the actual cards that you use to play. Memoir 44 is a card-driven combat game. And what that means is you're going to have a certain number of cards in your hand that will change depending on the scenario. Sometimes the Germans will have only 4 cards to work with, and the Americans will have 5. Sometimes the Germans will have 6 cards to work with, and the Americans will only have 5. That's just a way to show the different logistical problems that were happening in that specific scenario. As we continue looking into the box and what you'll get, you're going to get 8 dice. The dice that come in the game are white. They are wooden dice, and they have different kinds of painted on symbols on them. And usually one side will get 4, the other side will get 4. Often you're not going to be rolling more than that, but if you do, you can always borrow. Also in the game, you're going to get 42 tiles that are double-sided, and these are the terrain tiles. And I'm showing them to you just so that you can see how big they are in a hand. This is a forest, hedgerows, a hill, a town or a village, river tiles. There's there's all kinds of different things. There are different kinds of towns and village tiles, as you can see here. So you'll get 42 of these. They're double-sided. And you're also going to get, each side's going to get these card holders. It's really kind of simple. You just lock it in there like this, and they sit on the table, and then they hold your cards. All right, each side will have that. Green for allies, blue-gray for Axis. All right, then you'll also be getting these. These will come on punch boards, of course, but they're different kinds of counters that will act as victory point conditions. A certain town that if the Allies take it, they will have an extra victory point. Some of them are minefield tiles that are used in some of the scenarios. Some of these are also used to mark elite units. And then, of course, there are your actual units that will come in the game. These are the 2 tank models. I believe this is a model of a Tiger. This is a model of a roughly a Sherman. So these are the 2 guys you come along with. The actual infantry figures are, one is Allied figure with M1 Garand and Axis figure with MP40s. So that's the 2 guys that come along. And that's basically what you get in a basic set, a base set of Memoir 44. Now here I have, for example, the Scenario 2, Saint Marie Inglés. I don't know how you, that was like French, Spanish. I don't know how you pronounce it. But anyway, this happened on June 6, 1944. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about Memoir. These are actual real battles that took place in World War II. They're not exactly simulations. They are just scenarios where you kind of simulate the actual battle. But here on the side of the board, you see that there are the different terrain tiles that you're going to be using and how many, so you can go ahead and pull those out before you start setting up the game. I think it's better to go ahead and just, when you find the piece that you need, place it on the board. It cuts out a little bit of time. Each place on the board that has a symbol, that's the kind of unit that goes in that spot, and then each type of unit has a certain level. For example, if it's an armored unit, 3 tanks go into that hex. If it is an infantry unit, 4 infantry models go into that hex. If it is an artillery unit, 2 artillery pieces go in that hex. So following the scenario picture here, you set up your troops as necessary. For this one, you can see that it is heavily set up waiting against the Allies and in favor of the Axis. But that's because there is a special rule that is talked about down here in the bottom part of the scenario. Now, the bottom part of the scenario has special rules that might take place in this scenario, and then it also tells a little bit of a briefing, how many command cards you get on each side, who goes first, and how do you know when somebody has won. 4 medals means that you have eliminated, in this specific scenario, you have eliminated 4 enemy units. Whoever eliminates 4 enemy units first wins. Now, the special rules for this one actually favor the Allies because it has a airborne paratrooper special rule here. Before the Allied side takes its first turn, the Allied player has an additional air drop. Hold 4 infantry figures in your hand, about 12 inches above the board, and drop the figures. If the figure falls off the board or lands in a hex where there is a friendly unit, then it is of none effect. But if it falls into an empty hex and not off the board, it becomes another full-fledged infantry unit. The third thing that I really enjoy about each scenario is that it does come with a historical background. And here is where a little bit of education can creep into the game that you're about to have fun with. But in this case, it's a very cool thing that I think Days of Wonder did very well with, adding these into each scenario so that you can understand, at least on a very basic sense, what was happening in the context of the war when this battle took place. So as we would begin playing this scenario, I would take my 4 troops and hold them above the battlefield, about the size of the box standing on its edge, and then I would drop them. None of them fell off the board, and none of them are in a hex where another friendly unit is placed. What started as a pretty heavily advantageous scenario for the Germans has now actually leveled out quite a bit. You have the American paratroopers that showed up, and some of them are out in the open, which was, pretty close to what actually happened with those airborne drops. But a couple of them fell into some pretty well fortified positions, which is going to cause some problems for the German forces. So this is the beginning of the scenario. Now, what would happen is the first player, which is in this scenario, the Allies player, would take his first turn. Now, the Allies player here has a handful of order units. There are no special cards. So what he has to do is find out which one is the best thing for him to use at this point. This recon card here, don't underestimate the recon cards. It only moves one unit in one of your areas of battle. But if you read the the bottom of the card, it says, when drawing a new command card, draw 2, choose 1, and discard the other. So recon units are able to kind of cycle through the deck a little bit easier and find those cards that would be more advantageous to your plan. So don't discount recon cards. Use them to your advantage. As the board stands right now, though, at the beginning of the scenario, the American player, the Allies, actually have a lot of troops that are kind of out in the open, just waiting to be tore up by fire. So I think what would be best is to try to get those guys into cover somehow. So I would probably, if I were the Allies player, I would choose to play this attack card. Now, what the attack card does doesn't mean you actually have to attack. It just simply means that you're going to be ordering 3 units in the middle of the field. So I would go ahead and play that card down and look at the field. Now, units that are on a line like this that differentiate between 2 centers, they can be ordered by either a center order card or a left flank order card. So I'm going to go ahead and take these and move these guys into the hedgerows, give them a little bit of cover. I'm also going to take these guys here, move them back into cover like this, and these guys here, I'm going to put them into town, which gives them a good amount of cover, but they are in close assault ability with that other Axis unit there. So that's the first thing that you would do on your ordering your units. You would move all of your units. I accomplished what I wanted to do. I gave my troops some cover so that they wouldn't be absolutely torn to shreds out there in the open by that German outfit in that town. We're not going to have any combat this turn from the American side, but that's okay because we protected our troops a little bit better, which is going to help us out later on down the road, hopefully. At the end of our turn, we would draw a card off of the top of the deck. In this case, I drew an air power card. This is a special card that will help me later on. It's actually a really cool card too. So I place it there to replace the other one. And now it's the German player's turn. Now, from the German side of the board, we see that the German actually have a couple of special cards. Behind enemy lines, you get to issue an order to 1 infantry unit. The unit can move up to 3 hexes and then battle with 1 additional die, and then move again up to 3 hexes. Terrain movement and battle restrictions still apply. So this is a really cool card to have, especially in this case with these paratroopers dropping in out of basically nowhere. The other special card that the Germans have is the Armored Assault. Now this one allows you to issue an order up to 4 armor units. Now as you can see, we only have 1 armor unit, and right now he can't move because he's blocked in by a bunch of infantry units. You can't move through your other friendly units. So this card doesn't do us a whole lot of good right now, but since we're the only person that has armored units, it's actually pretty cool that we got this one. And then the other 2 cards are actually the exact same card. We have 2 probe cards where we can issue orders to 2 units on our left flank. Seeing as how we have that armored assault card and our armor is back there trapped, I think what would probably be best to do right now is play one of these probe cards to get some of these guys to get out of the way so that our armor can move. On the other hand, maybe we want to play our behind enemy lines card, where we can use these guys and maybe cause some damage and get them back into cover somehow. What I'm going to choose to do, though, because we have this armored assault, and armor can be a very influential tool in the battle, I'm going to go ahead and move one of these probe cards and issue an order to 2 of my units over here. So I'm going to issue an order to these guys. I'm going to have them move 2 spaces into this tree line here. Second one is going to be this one. I'm going to move that guy up here. Now, what that does, since we only move them 1, that does allow them to continue fighting. But if they moved into, since they moved into a forest, they cannot fire out. But that's okay, because at least now through the town, our armor has a route of exit. There's no combat this turn, so we take this, place it in the discard pile, draw a new card off the top of the deck, and great, another probe card. I want to take some time to talk about the whole idea of the card-driven format. Some people say that the card-driven format is too restrictive. And I think it helps battle against this whole idea of a divine commander that can see everything on the board that's happening, even the things that in real life he would not have a clue were happening unless he had some kind of spy or something like that on the other side. I think the card-driven mechanic of Memoir 44 greatly helps the fog of war aspect, because while these guys dropped in here, I want to be able to order these guys over here to attack and start pushing back over here, but I can't because I don't have the cards to do so. Well, that can be a way to explain that, you know, communications in these units have broken down. Maybe one of their radios got shot in a firefight, or the radio officer just went down. I don't know. But that's one of the things that I actually enjoy about Memoir, is that it takes care a little bit of that divine battlefield commander aspect of many war games, where we can see everything that's going on and we know what's where, and so that helps us make better decisions. That the battlefield commanders actually in the battle back in World War II possibly didn't even have that kind of information. So I think the card-driven format here, while it stinks that I got a probe card to replace a probe card, I think that's thematic. All right, well, back over here on the Allied side of the board, I think one of the best ways to start weakening some of those powers is with that new card that I just got called Air Power. Now, what Air Power does is it targets a group of 4 or fewer enemy units adjacent to each other. Roll 2 battle dice per hex, Allied air attack, or 1 per hex, Axis air attack. So that gives you the difference. If the Axis player is playing this card, he only gets to roll 1 per hex, whereas the Allies player gets to roll 2, ignoring any terrain battle die reduction. Score 1 hit for each die that matches the unit symbol, a grenade, or a star. All right, so that's a really cool card. We're going to play it. But before we play it and actually go through it, I want to explain exactly what these dice have on it. First of all, the grenade symbol. It doesn't matter what kind of unit you're shooting at, it's always a hit. The star symbol, unless you're using a special card like this one, where it says that a star symbol is a hit, it's a miss. If you're shooting at a tank or a squadron of tanks, and you roll this is what you're wanting to roll at. If you're shooting at infantry, you want to roll infantry. Okay? And a flag means that the unit you're shooting at has to retreat 1 hex for each flag rolled. There are 2 infantry symbols, and then the rest are spread out. So that's what the dice have on it. All right, so Air Power is played out this way. I'm going to choose these 4 units right here. So we'll start here with this one. We roll 2 dice. We're looking for the unit symbol, a grenade, or a star. Okay, so that's 2 hits from here. Boom. Next one, 2 grenades. That's a hit. All right, here we have, that was a star and an infantry. So again, 2 more hits. And back here in the corner, all right, we rolled a tank and an infantry unit, so only 1 comes off back there. So then, with the air power card being played, I take it and I place it in the discard pile and draw a new card. So I'll place that right there. And now it's the German's turn again. And as the German player, I am in a pickle. My right flank has just been ripped to shreds by a bunch of P-51 Mustangs. So, what I think would be a good thing for me to do right now is the behind enemy lines. Okay, so this is the one that allows me to move 1 unit up to 3 hexes, battle with 1 additional die, and then move again 3 hexes. Terrain movement and battle restrictions still apply. So I am definitely going to play that one. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do with those guys here is I'm going to move them 1, 2, 3 hexes out here, attack them, rolling 1 additional die, and then I'll move 3 hexes back. All right, so here we go. I roll an infantry unit adjacent to another hex rolls 3 dice. So since I can roll 3 dice, I get an additional die. That allows me to roll 4 dice instead of just 3. So I have my 4 dice here. I'm going to roll them. Ooh. Wow, not bad. Okay, now what this happens is, I'm glad I rolled this because it lets me explain a little bit more about flags. I rolled 3 flags and 1 infantry unit. So 1 guy is toast right off the bat. But now these allied units have to retreat to their board edge for each flag that they rolled. All right, so the first one they can do, no problem. Blink, all right? Now they've done this. These 2 have been resolved. Now he's going to have to retreat 2 more hexes, but he can't because he's on his board edge. So that translates to 2 more pieces being destroyed. So that was actually a pretty successful mission. It reduced them to 1 guy, and it got them to retreat. Now I'm going to move these guys back into cover. He's here. They can move up to 2. Up to 3. So 1, 2. We're within that. That was not a bad turn. Not as good as the Allies player, but not bad. I take the card that I played, put it in the discard pile, draw a new card to replace. Issue order to 4 infantry units, which is good because my force is heavily infantry. Terrain movement, battle restrictions still apply. That might be a good card for me next turn. Well, that's pretty much it as far as how gameplay is constructed. We've done a live play of this, Tom and I, so I'm not going to get too far into it. I just wanted to give you a basic idea of how all of that works together. And let's tell you what I think about the game. My thoughts on the game. Like you don't know already. I love this game. This is a game that I have always been enamored with ever since I first played it. If you only buy the base game of Memoir 44, I think you will be incredibly pleased with what you have purchased because it does come, like I said, 16 different scenarios that all have a different flavor about them. I only showed you one of them today. You can see how this is not necessarily a simulation, but it is a good, I guess you could say, reenactment of those different battles that took place within World War II. If you are a World War II history buff in any respect, and you enjoy playing board games, I think Memoir 44 is a must-have for your collection. Well, Memoir 44 gives us a very simple battle system where you can jump automatically into the flavor and the feel of World War II combat without sacrificing a lot of integrity within the game. So, beyond the shadow of a doubt, from my perspective, this is a must-get for any World War II historical buff.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.